Hello everyone, and welcome back to Cowboys and Cattle. In our last episode, Ty woke up confused and desperate to continue searching for the person he'd promised to rescue. Amy stopped him with news that shattered through his panic. The FBI found Daniel. He was alive. Barely 2 weeks without food or water had brought him to death's edge, but alive and being stabilized for emergency transport. Ty had kept his promise. Relief overwhelmed him until he asked about the 3 horses. Amy delivered devastating news. All 3 were gone, euthanized while Ty was unconscious. Their suffering escalating too rapidly to wait. Dr. Mitchell and Amy had made the merciful choice, peaceful deaths without pain. But Ty hadn't been there to say goodbye to animals he'd known intimately. Grief consumed him as he shared memories of Storm, Echo, and Luna, 3 horses he'd named, loved, and tried desperately to save, all gone while he was saving Daniel. Ty went to their empty stalls to say goodbye, grieving promises he'd tried to keep but could only fulfill through mercy rather than salvation. Morrison interrupted to say Daniel wanted to see Ty before being transported, wanted to thank the person who'd kept his promise. As Ty prepared to meet the man he'd saved, he carried both the victory of Daniel's rescue and the grief for the 3 he couldn't save. If this journey has gripped you, please hit that like button and subscribe. Today brings the moment Ty has been waiting for since waking up, the chance to finally speak with Daniel, the man whose trust never wavered. Outside the facility, as medical teams prepare Daniel for emergency helicopter transport to Anchorage, 2 men who survived Nathan's hell together will finally have the conversation that 5 years of captivity, memory erasure, and separation tried to prevent. They'll talk about how they met, how they bonded, how they planned an escape that failed, and how Nathan separated them. The promise between them remained unbroken, and Daniel will reveal a truth that will break Ty's heart all over again, a truth about what Nathan stole from him beyond just freedom. This is episode 88, and sometimes the people we save carry stories that remind us why keeping promises matters more than anything. The Alaska air was brutally cold as Ty and Amy stepped outside the facility, Morrison leading them toward where medical teams had set up a staging area for Daniel's transport. A helicopter sat nearby, rotor still, waiting for its critical passenger. Medical equipment surrounded a gurney where Daniel lay, bundled in thermal blankets, IV lines running into both arms, oxygen mask over his face. Even from a distance, Ty could see how emaciated Daniel was. The young man he remembered, or tried to remember through fragmented memories, had been healthy, strong, capable. The person on that gurney looked like he'd been through a war and barely survived. As they approached, one of the medical personnel noticed them and spoke quietly to Daniel. The young man's eyes, sunken but alert, turned toward Ty. Even through the oxygen mask, Ty could see recognition flood Daniel's expression. Daniel's hand lifted weakly from beneath the blankets, reaching out. Ty moved forward immediately, his own exhaustion forgotten, and took that skeletal hand in his. The grip was weak but present, real, alive.
Daniel, I'm here. I came back.
Daniel pulled the oxygen mask down with his free hand, his voice hoarse and barely above a whisper. You actually came back after all this time. I wasn't sure if I'd dreamed it. The voices, the rescue. Thought maybe I was hallucinating from dehydration.
You weren't hallucinating. Morrison and his team found you, got you out of that cell. You're safe now.
Tears streamed down Daniel's gaunt face, cutting tracks through dirt and 2 weeks of accumulated grime. After Nathan separated us, I was devastated. I always wonder, how were you doing? After you disappeared, I prayed and thought maybe you'd escaped. Maybe you'd made it out. But it also feared me. What if Nathan had killed you? But I kept hoping, kept believing in you. His voice broke. And you did. I've heard about the memory erasure from the FBI. I still can't believe you remembered me. It's all a miracle to me.
Barely. The memories were fragmented. I couldn't see your face clearly until Morrison carried you out of that cell. Couldn't remember your name until you said it. But I remembered the promise, remembered someone was waiting for me, and I couldn't leave you there.
Amy stood back, giving them space but close enough to support Ty if needed. She watched the reunion with tears in her eyes, seeing the bond between these 2 men who'd survived hell together. One of the medical personnel approached apologetically. I'm sorry, but we need to transport Mr. Tremblay within the next 10 minutes. His condition is critical, and the longer we delay, the more risk we take.
Tremblay? Daniel Tremblay?
Yeah, you really did forget everything about me, didn't you?
Not everything. I remembered you existed. Remembered the promise. The rest, it's coming back in pieces. But Daniel, we have 10 minutes. Talk to me. Tell me what I forgot. Help me remember.
Daniel nodded, and with effort began to speak. His voice was weak, requiring frequent pauses to catch his breath. But determination kept him going. You don't remember how we met? 3 years into your captivity? I'd been here for more than 6 months. Nathan's people grabbed me from a veterinary conference in Vancouver, drugged me, transported me here, told me I'd be working on groundbreaking genetic research, or I'd never see my family again. He took a shaky breath. The first time I saw you was in the breeding facility. You were examining a mare, one of the early mutation cases. I was being given a tour by one of Nathan's people, being shown what I'd be working on, and you looked at me with these eyes that said, I'm sorry you're here too. There were about 20 of us eventually, veterinarians from all over North America, some from Europe. Nathan collected expertise the way some people collect stamps. Most of us were kidnapped like you and me, forced to work under threat. His expression darkened. But not all of us. There were maybe 5 or 6 vets who came voluntarily, who knew exactly what Nathan was doing and didn't care because the money was incredible. Those ones were the worst. They'd report anyone who talked about escaping, would tell Nathan if someone was sabotaging work, would actively help with the torture if Nathan asked.
Dr. Marsh. Ellen Marsh. Was she one of the volunteers?
No. She was like us. Forced. Nathan had her daughter. Kept her locked up somewhere. I never found out where, and told Dr. Marsh if she didn't cooperate, the daughter would suffer. So she worked for Nathan for years, hating every minute, but doing it anyway because she didn't have a choice. Amy spoke for the first time, her voice gentle.
Is Dr. Marsh still alive? Did the FBI find her?
Daniel's expression became sad. She died. About a year ago. Heart attack while working. Nathan didn't even stop the breeding programs for her funeral, just had her body removed and brought in someone else to replace her. Silence fell over the group. Another victim. Another life destroyed by Nathan's operation.
But you and me. How did we become friends instead of just co-workers?
Calgary. We were both from Calgary. I figured it out when I overheard you talking about Heartland Ranch one day. You were telling another vet about your work there, how you'd specialized in horse rescue and rehabilitation. And I said, wait, you're from Calgary? And you looked at me like I'd just offered you water in a desert. A faint smile crossed Daniel's exhausted face. We started talking whenever Nathan's people would let us. You told me about Heartland, about Amy, about Lindy, about how you'd been shot and woke up here. And I told you about my life before Nathan. His voice caught. You told me about Heartland, like it was heaven. Described the mountains, the barn, the horses, your family. You made it sound so real I could almost see it, and I'd never even been there, but I wanted to go. Wanted to see this place that made you light up, even in the middle of hell.
I talked about Heartland?
Constantly. It was the only thing that kept you sane those first couple years. You'd describe every building, every pasture, every horse by name. You'd tell stories about Amy and Lindy, like you were reading from a photo album in your head. And I think talking about it helped you remember who you were when everything else was trying to make you forget. Amy moved closer, her hand finding Ty's shoulder. He'd spent 3 years in captivity, clinging to memories of Heartland, describing it to someone else as a way to keep it real. And then Nathan had stolen those memories anyway. Daniel shifted slightly on the gurney, wincing with pain, but continued speaking with determination. We started planning maybe 6 months after that. You'd been watching guard patterns for years by then, knew the weak points in their security, knew when shift changes happened, knew which guards were lazy and which were vigilant. He took several breaths from the oxygen mask before continuing. The plan was simple. Wait for a supply delivery. They happened every 2 weeks. During the confusion of unloading, we'd slip out through the loading bay. You'd mapped an escape route through the wilderness. Said if we could make it 15 miles south, we'd hit a highway. Could flag down help.
But it didn't work.
We made it as far as the fence, just like in your memory. We were climbing over when the searchlights hit us. Dogs, guards, Nathan himself came out to watch them drag us back inside. His voice became strained. The beating was bad, but the worst part was Nathan's face. He wasn't even angry. He was disappointed, like we were children who'd misbehaved and needed to be taught a lesson. He had his guards work us over for hours, broke 3 of my ribs, dislocated your shoulder. Then he separated us.
That's when you went to the hidden corridor. The cells behind the false wall?
Yeah, Nathan said. Since I was clearly a flight risk, I needed more secure accommodations. He put me in that cell and told me I'd stay there until I learned cooperation. And Ty, I was in there for 2 years. 2 years in a room 8 feet by 8 feet. No windows, no human contact except when they shoved food under the door. The horror of it settled over everyone listening. 2 years in solitary confinement. 2 years of isolation and darkness.
How did you survive that? How did you stay sane?
I didn't. Not really. I survived because I had to. Because I had a daughter out there who needed her father. And because Ty had promised he'd come back. He looked directly at Ty. After they separated us, I didn't see you again until your second escape attempt. That was 2 years later. I'd almost given up hope. And then one day I heard footsteps in the corridor. Heard someone trying the doors. And I recognized your voice when you started calling out.
I found you by accident.
His voice filled with emotion. And that's when you made the promise. You said, I'm going to escape from this place. And when I do, I'm coming back with help. I will not leave you here.
Nathan caught me, took me to Montana, erased my memory completely. And you spent 6 more months waiting for a promise I couldn't remember making.
But you didn't forget. Not really. Somewhere in your mind, the promise survived. And you came back. Maybe it took several months longer than we hoped. Maybe you couldn't remember my face or my name. But you came back. That's what matters. One of the medical personnel approached again, more insistent this time. We really need to go. Mr. Tremblay's vitals are declining. We need to get him to Anchorage immediately.
Wait, just 1 more minute, please.
He turned back to Daniel, suddenly desperate to know more before they were separated again.
You said you had a daughter. Tell me about her.
Daniel's expression transformed, grief and love mixing in equal measure. Her name is Sophie. Sophie Rose Tremblay. She was born 6 years ago. 3 days before Nathan's people took me. His voice broke completely, fresh tears streaming down his face. My wife Emma, she had complications during delivery. Started hemorrhaging. The doctors tried everything, but they couldn't stop it. She died 2 hours after Sophie was born, and I was left holding this tiny, perfect baby girl, knowing I'd have to raise her alone, knowing Emma would never see her grow up. Amy's hand flew to her mouth, her own tears flowing freely. Ty squeezed Daniel's hand tighter, unable to speak through the emotion. I had 3 days with Sophie, 3 days of feeding her, changing her, holding her while she slept, 3 days of being a father. And then I went to that veterinary conference in Vancouver, left Sophie with my sister for the weekend, said I'd be back Sunday night. He took several shuddering breaths. I never came back. Nathan's people grabbed me from the conference hotel, drugged me. By the time I woke up, I was in Alaska, and Sophie, my 3-day-old daughter, she grew up without either parent. Emma dead and me vanished without explanation.
Your sister. Does she still have Sophie?
I don't know. I haven't seen or heard anything about my daughter. Don't know if my sister raised her, or if she went to foster care, or anything. I don't know if Sophie even knows I existed. Don't know if anyone told her about Emma. Don't know if she thinks she was abandoned, or if she believes I'm dead. The anguish in Daniel's voice was unbearable. Amy moved closer, placing her hand on Daniel's arm.
We'll find her. As soon as you're stable, as soon as you're out of the hospital, we'll find Sophie. We'll make sure you get reunited with your daughter.
She's 6 years old now. She won't remember me. I'm a stranger to her.
But you're her father, and she deserves to know you. Deserves to know you didn't abandon her, that you were fighting to get back to her for 6 years.
What if she doesn't want to know me? What if finding out I'm alive just traumatizes her more?
Or what if knowing you're alive and that you fought to come home gives her something she's been missing her entire life? A father who loves her.
Morrison stepped forward, his voice gentle but firm. Mr. Tremblay, I promise you, finding Sophie is now an FBI priority. We'll locate her. We'll make sure she knows what happened to you, and we'll facilitate a reunion if and when you're ready. But right now, we need to get you to a hospital. You need intensive care. Daniel nodded weakly, his energy clearly fading. He looked at Ty one more time. Thank you for keeping your promise, for coming back, for saving my life. I don't have words for what it means.
You don't need words. Just promise me something.
Anything.
Promise me. You'll fight. You'll get through recovery. You'll get strong again. Because Sophie needs her father. And after everything you've survived, you can't give up now.
I promise. For Sophie, I'll fight.
Good. Because when you're better, you're coming to Heartland. You talked about wanting to see it for years. It's time you actually visited.
A weak smile crossed Daniel's face. I'd like that. I'd really like that. The medical team moved in, preparing Daniel for transport. They raised the gurney, secured the IV lines, adjusted the oxygen flow. Ty and Amy stepped back, giving them room to work. As they loaded Daniel into the helicopter, the young man kept his eyes on Ty until the doors closed. Then the rotors began spinning, the noise making conversation impossible. Ty and Amy stood back, watching as the helicopter lifted off, carrying Daniel toward Anchorage, toward intensive care, toward survival and hopefully reunion with a daughter who didn't know she still had a father alive. As the helicopter disappeared into the distance, Ty felt Amy's arm wrap around his waist. He pulled her close, both of them shaking from cold and emotion and exhaustion.
You did it. You kept your promise. You saved him.
But he lost 6 years with his daughter. 6 years Sophie grew up without either parent. How is that saving him?
Because now he has a chance to get those years back. Not the ones that are gone, those are lost, but the future ones. The rest of Sophie's childhood, her teenage years, walking her down the aisle someday, meeting his grandchildren. All of that is possible now, because you refuse to forget him.
Ty turned to look at his wife, seeing the strength and compassion that had kept her going through 2 weeks of watching him suffer.
I couldn't have done this without you being here, supporting me, helping with the horses, being my anchor when I was drowning.
That's what marriage means. Facing nightmares together. And Ty, we did it. We came to Alaska, we faced your trauma, we saved Daniel, we gave mercy to animals who needed it. We did everything we came here to do.
Then why do I still feel like something's broken?
Because healing isn't linear. Because trauma doesn't disappear just because you face it. Because you're exhausted physically and emotionally and you need rest, real rest, not unconsciousness from collapse, actual sleep.
Morrison approached, having stayed respectfully back during the goodbye. The transport with the remaining horses leaves in an hour. My teams are finishing documentation and evidence collection. We'll be ready to evacuate the facility completely by tonight, which means you two can leave any time.
Back to Anchorage?
Morrison, back to Anchorage, then Calgary tomorrow morning. You've done everything you came here to do. Time to go home. The word home hit Ty with unexpected force. Heartland. Lindy. The life he'd left behind to come here. Suddenly, he wanted nothing more than to be back in Alberta, in his own bed, with his daughter down the hall, surrounded by everything safe and familiar.
Let's go. I want to go home.
The journey to rest. The helicopter ride back to Anchorage felt surreal. Ty and Amy sat together, exhausted beyond words, watching the Alaskan wilderness pass below. The facility disappeared behind them, a compound that had held so much suffering, so many lost years, so many broken lives. Dr. Foster sat across from them, monitoring Ty's vitals one more time. Your blood pressure's still elevated, heart rate too high. You're running on adrenaline and willpower, and that's not sustainable. When we get to Anchorage, you need to sleep. Actual, restorative sleep.
I will. I promise.
I'm serious, Ty. Your body's been through extreme stress, the panic attack, the collapse, The emotional trauma. If you don't rest properly, you're risking serious health complications.
I'll make sure he rests, even if I have to sit on him to keep him in bed.
A ghost of a smile crossed Ty's exhausted face.
That won't be necessary. I'm so tired I could sleep for a week.
When they landed in Anchorage, Morrison had arranged hotel rooms near the airport, comfortable, quiet, designed for rest. Ty and Amy checked in while Morrison coordinated with his teams still at the facility. Morrison, I'll be in the building if you need anything. But honestly, I hope I don't hear from you until morning. Sleep. Both of you. You've earned it. The hotel room was simple but clean. 2 beds, warm lighting, thick curtains that blocked out the perpetual Alaskan twilight. Amy immediately closed those curtains, creating darkness that signaled sleep. Ty sat on the edge of the bed, suddenly unsure what to do with himself. For days, he'd been in constant motion, planning, traveling, exploring, remembering, surviving. Now that there was nothing left to do except rest, his mind didn't know how to shut down.
Come on, lie down.
I don't know if I can sleep. My mind won't stop.
Then we'll use your techniques. The ones Dr. Chen taught you. The breathing, the grounding.
She sat beside him on the bed, taking his hands.
5 things you can see in this room.
The curtains, the lamp, your face, the other bed, the door.
4 things you can touch.
The bedspread, your hands, my jeans, the pillow.
3 things you can hear.
Your breathing, heater running, traffic outside.
2 things you can smell.
Clean sheets, your shampoo.
1 thing you can taste.
Coffee from earlier. Still lingering.
She guided him to lie down, pulling the covers over him. Then she lay beside him, her body curled against his, her presence a constant comfort.
Close your eyes, breathe with me. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 6.
They breathed together, the controlled rhythm calming Ty's racing mind. Minutes passed, then more minutes. Ty felt his body beginning to relax, muscle by muscle, the tension draining away.
Amy?
Yeah?
Thank you for coming with me, for not letting me do this alone.
Always. Whatever you face, we face together.
I love you.
I love you too. Now sleep. We're going home tomorrow.
Home. The word was a promise, a beacon, a destination that had kept Ty fighting for 5 years and would keep him fighting through whatever came next. His breathing deepened. His mind, exhausted from days of trauma and stress and emotion, finally surrendered to sleep. Not the unconsciousness of collapse. Not the fitful rest interrupted by nightmares. But real, deep, restorative sleep. Beside him, Amy stayed awake a little longer, watching her husband sleep peacefully for the first time since arriving in Alaska. No thrashing, no crying out, no visible distress, just rest. She thought about everything they'd witnessed, the suffering animals, the rescued horses, Daniel's story, the 3 who died, the promise kept, so much pain, so much loss, but also triumph, also survival, also hope. Tomorrow, they'd fly home to Heartland, to Lindy, to their life together, and they'd begin the real work of healing, not from the immediate trauma of Alaska, but from the 5 years that had been stolen, and the scars that remained. But tonight, they rested. 2 people who'd walked through hell together and come out the other side, exhausted, wounded, but alive. And sometimes, that was enough. That concludes today's episode. Outside the Alaska facility, as medical teams prepared Daniel for emergency helicopter transport, Ty finally met the man he'd saved. Their reunion was emotional and profound. Daniel, emaciated but conscious, confirmed what Ty had feared. He barely remembered Daniel's face or name. But he'd remembered the promise. Through their conversation, we learned how they met 3 years into Ty's captivity. Both veterinarians from Calgary forced to work on Nathan's mutations. About 20 vets total worked the facility. Most kidnapped and forced like Ty and Daniel, but some who came voluntarily for money and actively supported Nathan. Ty and Daniel bonded over their shared hometown, with Ty constantly describing Heartland as a way to keep the memory alive. They planned their first escape together, but it failed. Nathan separated them, putting Daniel in solitary confinement in the hidden corridor for 2 years. They met again during Ty's second escape attempt, when Ty made his promise. Then Daniel revealed his devastating tragedy. His wife Emma died during childbirth. 3 days later, Nathan kidnapped him, separating him from his newborn daughter Sophie. For 6 years, Daniel has wondered if his daughter even knows he exists. As the helicopter took Daniel to Anchorage, Ty promised to help reunite him with Sophie. Morrison confirmed finding Sophie was now an FBI priority. Exhausted beyond measure, Ty and Amy returned to Anchorage and finally slept, real peaceful sleep for the first time in days. Tomorrow they go home to Heartland. Join us next time as Ty and Amy reunite with Lindy and begin processing everything that happened in Alaska. If this episode moved you with Daniel's story and the promise finally kept, please like and subscribe. Until next time, this is Cowboys and Cattle.